Hello. I'm working on a new version of assemblage theory, and it's a kind of a new assemblage of assemblage theory, because one must treat assemblage theory as a kind of assemblage. It's building on the work of Deleuze, of course, but very specifically Delanda, but it also incorporates the work of other theorists working, such as Matthew Fuller, Keller Easterling, Latour, of course, and many others. So it's a specific reworking of it. And what I'm interested to do is to apply it to unmanned systems in the military. And I think that probably everyone would sort of realize why it's important to do that today, because of the enormous amount of money that the US is currently spending on unmanned systems technology, but also the development of robot weaponry all around the globe, and specific programs are developing in Europe, Canada, South Korea, South Africa, Singapore, and Israel. China, Russia, and India are also embarking on the development of unmanned aerial combat vehicles. These are right here, Rome-based Alenia Aeronautica developing SkyX UCAV. The second one is a pan-European UCAV in the works, which is called the Neuron killer drone. Also WASP, micro-air vehicles, and so on. Also, unmanned vehicles are being developed in the civilian sector. This was a particular vigilante group called the American Border Patrol, who's developed a UAV for patrolling the US-Mexico border. What's really interesting about these systems and these parts is that there's a very specific, a different kind of landscape that they mark and they facilitate. And it's collections of actors distributed in space of different apparatuses of engagement and institutional contexts where they kind of involve a kind of distribution and outsourcing and arming of vision, one could say. So there's an increasing need to understand this complexity. And so what's very interesting for me is to think about how assemblage theory might help. So it provides a very particular test case for working through the model. So what ultimately I'm interested in here, I think, is a politics of looking, this context. So I wanted to talk about that today, but then I'm a little bit concerned about the time limitation and all of that, so I thought I might switch gears a little bit and talk about it in terms of the Buffyverse. But first we go into the Buffyverse, and I hope you won't mind, but so I want to talk about how I'm defining an assemblage first. So an assemblage is a grouping of recurrent roles and processes, so kind of compositional energies and substances, which have bonded and stabilized in a kind of synthetic co-functioning whole that is not reducible to its parts. What's interesting about it is the kind of extreme horizontality of all kinds of actors, and sort of what I understand is a kind of vertical access of scales and degrees of stabilization and organizational complexity. The assemblage is in a moving population, body or entity, and it's a multiscalar phenomenon. At all scales, one could say that it's characterized by properties and capacities. Properties, organizational principles and procedures. Capacities being qualities of engagement, to affect and be affected, to interact with, to transmit intensities with, to enter into alliances with other entities, and so on. So inside the Buffyverse, there's not one assemblage, but there are many assemblages. You can even see them as sort of marked by the specific colors here. Properties of the Buffyverse: Walking Dead, requires oxygen, does not require oxygen, part demon. Capacities: has been known to be evil, has demonstrated a capacity for evilness. Did time as a rat, has demonstrated a capacity for ratness. Crack whore, has demonstrated capacity for drugs and sex. So as a variety of these capacities get exercised in interaction with other assemblages, they endow the body or the population with new properties of their own. But it's important, again, also not to talk about actors, such as a very example here using actors, specific actors, but we want to broaden our concept of what an actor is, of course. An actor can be anything. And there are actually two mutually constitutive approaches to the assembly. One is taking to the assemblage. One is taking an analytical approach and understanding the assemblage in terms of its roles, its actor components. The other is taking a synthetic approach, understanding the assemblage in terms of its recurrent processes. And I refer to these as stabilization and destabilization routines. Actor components. The component entities and roles, the parts and the parts they play. An actor, an entity, organic or inorganic, as oriented toward action, a body on the edge of action, a multi-scalar concept. Actors can function in multiple assemblages at the same time, embedded in several strata of assemblages, from the subpersonal to the entirety of the assemblage itself, where the actor is an assemblage, device, person, network, system, institution, so on. Roles, generated by the actors' exercising of different sets of their capacities as they engage other actors, as defined by their properties, in accordance with their properties. And these are always in mixtures of the expressive, the affective, and the material, or what you might see as living presence and formal presence. And they're traversing nature, culture, subject, object, form, content, signifier, signified divides. So the stabilization and destabilization routines are the recurrent processes that the assemblage, the actor components, multiply scaled, get involved in, and which synthesize its actor parts or network them together, and which stabilize or destabilize it and its identity by increasing or decreasing its degree of internal homogeneity. So since the assemblage works at multiple scales, one can see it actually has thresholds of stability. The main stabilizing process is not language, but habitual repetition, the repeated occurrence of the same process. This process can involve the symbolic, involve coding, but it's not reducible to it. So these two let's say axes, work in conjunction. They complement one another. One must sort of work with them both, keep them both in play. So to this, very quickly, are two specialized lines of expression, a line of coding and decoding, a line of formulating and deformulating. Specifically interested in developing this line of formulating and deformulating. Okay, I'm already on time. All right, okay. So, all right, well, I was going to talk about flagellation. But I'm out of time, so, all right. Okay, all right, thank you. This goes quickly.